Well, President Obama gave his proposals at the State of the Union this past week. Republicans responded, including Senate Banking Committee Chairman Richard Shelby at the top of this program. We all want to see tax reform. We all want to see it done in a fair and balanced manner. Maya McGinnis is the president of the Committee for a Responsible Budget, and it is wonderful to have you back on the program, Maya. Good morning.
Thanks, Maria. Good morning.
So let's talk about some of the proposals we heard from the president. What do you think is doable? What do you think would work and what would not work? We continue to see this as one of the real stumbling blocks that the two can get together on.
Well, I think the thing to notice was, first off, if you take a step back and you recall a little while ago, it was actually the White House that was saying, we can't do comprehensive tax reform. We've raised rates on individuals through the fiscal cliff deal, and there's no way we can bring them back down. So we should focus on business tax reform. So many of us who all along have been saying we really need to reform the tax code comprehensively, look at the individual component and look at the corporate component, kind of accept this political reality. We are going to do business tax reform only. We're focusing on that. And that looked like one of the things that might be able to move forward ahead this year, because you have Republicans and the White House who want to do this. So the State of the Union proposals, first off, brought up something really important. How are we going to help the middle class? But did so in a way that I feel like has kind of complicated how we're going to move ahead on tax reform. Are we doing business only? Are we trying to help the middle class? Are we doing comprehensive? It stirred up the pot instead of picking a plan and moving forward so we can try to get something done.
You're right. And one of the things that sort of stirred the pot is the idea to have free college tuition, but enable that by taxing 529 plans, which we all know is the key tool for families to save money that is tax-free, that ultimately will be used to send their kids to school.
Yeah, so what this does is it gets in there, and we've talked about this before. Remember how many tax breaks there are to begin with, right? The tax code is filled with deductions and credits and exclusions. One of the things that you might want to think about when you're doing individual tax reform is how you get rid of a lot of those, bring the rates way down, and then start to layer them back and think about which things are most important. And there are a lot of priorities, those that help the middle class, but also that help invest in our workers and help in growth, that you would put at the top of the list of what you want to bring back. There is something to keep in mind, which is whatever we give these targeted tax breaks to often ends up driving the cost. So we see this, the costs up. We see this in housing, in medical costs, in education, where we give targeted tax breaks. Part of the effect is it makes those things more expensive. So one of the questions is, are there other ways than doing targeted tax breaks that may be better for helping growth, simplicity, and American families?
So do you think that this 529 idea is doable? I mean, or is this hurting more people than it's actually helping?
To be direct, I don't think that the 529 idea has been well fleshed out yet. I think this was a political speech trying to put out a lot of priorities about what the president, the White House, and probably looking at 2016 Republicans versus Democrats are going to talk about. I don't think we're in any position to start saying, let's make these changes to 529s right now. Let's take a step back and think about how we want to build our tax code on the individual side and on the business side. And I'm worried that this is serving as a distraction. And at this point, one where the details haven't been thought out well enough yet.
All right. So it's a lot of noise. And there's one place where actually the individual and the business community come together, and that is when it comes to small business, Maya. Because if you are going to keep rates or cut rates for large corporations, but keep rates at the level they are for individuals, you're actually keeping high rates for small business and lower rates for larger business. I mean, the Republicans are saying you're slapping American small businesses with higher tax rates at a time when, in fact, they're still trying to get traction.
Another argument for why we should be doing comprehensive tax reform. If you look at doing business side tax reform and the individual code at the same time, we can have policies that make sense for both big businesses and small businesses and not differentiated so much by the corporate structure. I also think one of the reasons to think about this more comprehensively is the way we do things in Washington is way too compartmentalized. We think about one topic, another topic, another topic. We should be thinking about what's a comprehensive economic growth plan for this country.
Right.
Part of that is recognizing that in a global environment, we need to allow more competitiveness for our businesses so that they can be the engines of growth. But we also need to capture that revenue somehow because our debt problems are still high. Remember, our debt is twice the historical average as a share of the economy. So we can't lose money. We need to change where we're taxing and allow us to promote competitiveness on one side, but capture revenues on the other side. If you do individual and business at the same time, you have a real chance to do that in a thoughtful, pro-growth way.
So Maya, real quick, why then is the president doing this dance? I mean, why come out with things that we've heard before, which are only going to fire up, the Republicans to say dead, as Mr. Boehner is saying tonight on 60 Minutes?
Yeah, it did surprise me because, listen, I think the priority, again, is an important one. The middle class is struggling. Income inequality issues in this country are real. We need to think about how to address them. But to talk about this on individual tax reform and kind of shifting some of these policies just at the moment that some of the tax reform he's been highlighting, business tax reform, has been starting to move forward, seemed to me like it was focusing on the politics instead of the possible and the good economics of what we can get done this year. It's not going to be a huge, vastly successful year. That seems highly unlikely. But if we can get a real jump start on things like business tax reform, that would be a great start to building for this bigger comprehensive economic plan, which is what we really need to focus on. So I think the distraction wasn't helpful, even though the priorities are things we need to be discussing.
Maya, always practical thoughts from you. Thank you so much. We appreciate your insights this morning.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll see you soon.